On Friday night, I went to go see a screening of Citizenfour at the New York Film Festival, and it's a really interesting movie because, first of all, you'll get a lot of actual footage in that hotel room in Hong Kong where Snowden is talking to Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, and then eventually an investigative reporter from The Guardian, whose name I forget, but who's actually my favorite guy in the movie. He's this great Scottish reporter. Um, it's awesome. I think again, getting that sort of the full picture again, taking us back to David Miranda getting detained for hours under the Anti-Terrorism Act in the UK. British agents going into the Guardian offices and forcing them to literally destroy computers and computer programs is pretty astonishing. Um, Edward Snowden comes off incredibly well. Obviously, he's going to come off well because, of course, the movie's made by Laura Poitras. It's made with Glenn Greenwald. There's no doubt that, they've worked with Snowden closely. I think, again, my main bottom line is I mean, Snowden's still in Russia. I think there's questions about that in terms of just the reality of that situation in Russia. That's a whole other set of conversations. I don't agree with some of the leaks, but the bottom line is that we're almost talking 2 years out now at this point, a little less than 2 years. I mean, he's been vindicated on so many levels. It's really kind of astonishing. And, the bottom line is that he felt really uncomfortable witnessing this stuff day in and day out, as would anybody who had any type of understanding of this kind of massive nature of surveillance and lack of accountability around it. And there really remains that one moment in the movie. And I think, everybody who listens to this show probably know that, relatively speaking, I do my defenses of President Obama somewhat regularly. But there is that time, and I remember, and I said it at the time too, when he came out and he said we would be having this debate about the nature of surveillance, the nature of the NSA, and reforming these programs, even if Mr. Snowden didn't do this. It's just one of the most disingenuous things I've ever seen in my life. This wasn't on anybody's radar. You had James Clapper lying to Senator Wyden about it. You basically had the Obama administration coming in and not being dishonest in the sense that they basically said, we're going to bring all of these Bush era programs. They're not going to be illegal or outside of the law anymore. And people interpreted that as great. That means you're going to actually stop these tremendously civil liberties violating programs. But what they meant was they're going to codify them and come up with sounder legal justifications for them. So you have a FISA court that approves every single request, totally non-adversarial, and all of these other things. And, the real reforms have still not happened. Snowden totally opened a debate that completely had not existed before. And the movie is very important because, look, if he doesn't stay in the public radar, and there isn't the broader recognition, then I think there's, as I've said, I think there's many things you could talk about with it, but the basic bottom line is these whistleblowing was a net positive for this country and the global system, and for a conversation about surveillance, which I think should go beyond government surveillance. I think we need to also have a conversation about the tech economy and monitoring. There's a lot there. But, you don't want to get to a situation where in a couple of years, there's some type of change in Russian-U.S. relations. He's off the public radar. And one day in the back page, you just read like, oh, yeah, and Russia just sort of dumped him in a tarmac somewhere. And now he's going to go to a maximum security prison here. I mean, he needs definitely at this point, look, he'll come home. He needs to be debriefed, whatever. At this point, he's in Russia. There's no doubt that he's being handled by Russian intelligence. Doesn't mean he's giving them any information or anything, but that's just the reality. But he needs to come back, and he needs to be, completely exonerated. And, there's no doubt that he's performed a service. And it's a really interesting movie to watch it actually play out. So I recommend everybody check it out.